Hello guys, a very good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. Well, it's the 17th day of November 2022. What that means is that the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has today presented the 2020 budget statement and economic policy of the government of the Republic of Ghana to Parliament. Christian building a sustainable entrepreneurial nation, fiscal consolidation, and job creation. The budget, yes, scraps road tolls, and so you would no longer be paying road tolls. But that would not be all, because there is also the imposition of an electronic transaction levy. E-Levy for short, 1.75% when it comes to mobile money transactions or transactions through the bank. Now, according to the Finance Minister, the sender is the one who will be paying this 1.75%. This, we're told, will be used to support road construction and others, and also the U-Start, for instance. And talking about the U-Start, and as the name suggests, building an entrepreneurial nation, there's a grand scheme of ensuring that some 1 billion Ghana cedis made available to create some 1 million jobs. According to the Finance Minister, the plan is to create entrepreneurial spirit among the young ones. Other taxes have been talked about, and also a major discussion point is the decision to review the 2019 benchmark value reduction policy. Now, according to the Finance Minister, as has been suggested, government is taking a decision to review that. This evening, we want to find out something very simple. What do you make of the 2022 budget statement as presented by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta? Were your expectations met? In the first place, what were those expectations? And from our team of experts, we'll be finding out from them, is this the kind of budget that you want as a country? What will be the implication for the digitalization agenda? We're talking about actually promoting a cashless society in Ghana. How will the 1.75% imposed on financial transactions, electronic transactions, affect our plan of becoming a cashless society? How will that affect also our digitalization process? Why don't you join us this evening? You can join us on Twitter at JoyNews on TV, and we'll certainly find your thoughts and also share your thoughts with the rest of the world. My name is Winston. I want to return after these messages. I'll be introducing my guests. We'll also be hearing from the Finance Minister some of these policies that he's put in place in ensuring that we are able to raise some 80 billion Ghana cedis in tax revenue. 80 billion Ghana cedis in tax revenue. We're looking at revenue and grants totaling 100 billion Ghana cedis, a total expenditure of 137 billion Ghana cedis. Interest payments, 37 billion Ghana cedis, and we're talking about a primary balance surplus of 0.01%. This is Upfront on the JoyNews channel. When we return, we're telling you more about these statistics, we'll tell you more about the 2022 budget, and then we begin the analysis. Right, so welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. And tonight our focus is on the 2022 budget statement and economic policy of the government of the Republic of Ghana. And we've been joined via Zoom by Professor Lord Mensah, who is an economist, is an associate professor at the University of Ghana Business School. Earlier today we spoke to him. He was telling us what his expectations were. Professor Lord Mensah, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. If you can unmute your microphone, we'll be very happy. Please unmute your microphone.
Sorry about that. Good evening to you, Winston, and good evening to our viewers this evening.
Great. So I'm going to come to you shortly and find out whether your expectations were met before we get into the specifics of the taxes and some of these indicators. But before we do that, let's hear some highlights. Let's watch some highlights of what the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, presented in Parliament today.
After undergoing several reviews, the exemption bill has been completed and laid before Parliament. We will work with this House for final passage and implementation in 2022. Mr. Speaker, we wish to reiterate that we are in challenging times which require radical measures, so let us embrace these new policies to enable government to address the fundamental issues affecting the economy, to ensure that our nation continues to maintain its position as the black star of the continent. The good people of Ghana has given us a mandate to get things done. For us, as a government, this is a clarion call for a new deal, a chance to renew the social contract. Our roads are being fixed. It is true that more roads have been fixed and are being fixed over the last 5 years than any relative period in the entire history of our nation. We even want to do a lot more, and this budget will cater for this. That is why for decades, governments after governments imposed and maintained tolls on some public roads to raise funds for road construction and maintenance. This is the situation in many countries. However, over the years, the tolling point and impacted negatively on productivity. The congestion generated at the tolling points, besides creating these inconveniences, also leads to pollution in and around the vicinities. To address these challenges, government has abolished all tolls on public roads and bridges. This takes effect immediately the budget is approved on appropriation. The toll collection personnel will be reassigned. The expected impact on productivity and reduced environmental pollution will more than offset the revenue foregone by removing the tolls. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 contributed to the acceleration of the digitalization of Africa. Data from the Bank of Ghana confirms a growing trend in online trade. The data showed that between February 2020 and February 2021 alone, Ghana saw an increase of over 120% in the value of digital transactions compared to 44% for the period February 2019 to February 2020. Apart from the convenience online trading offers, the surge has happened globally was primarily due to the increase in the use of digital platforms as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Total value of transactions for 2020 was estimated to be over 500 billion Ghana cedis compared to 78 billion cedis in 2016, just 5 years ago. While total money subscribers and active mobile money users have grown by an average rate of 18% and 16% respectively between 2016 and 2019. Mr. Speaker, it has become clear that there is this enormous potential to increase tax revenue by bringing into the tax bracket transactions that could be best defined as being undertaken in the informal economy. After considerable deliberation, government has decided to place a levy on all electronic transactions to widen the tax net and rope in the informal sector. This shall be known as the Electronic Transaction Levy or E-Levy. Mr. Speaker, electronic transactions covering mobile money payments. Mr. Speaker,
honourable members, order.
Electronic mobile money payments, bank transfers, Merchant payments and e-mode remittances will be charged at an applicable rate of 1.75%, which shall be borne by the sender, except e-mode remittances, which will be borne by the recipient. Mr. Speaker, to safeguard efforts being made to enhance financial inclusion and protect the vulnerable, all transactions that add up to 100 Ghana cedis or less per day, which is approximately 1,000 Ghana cedis per month, will be exempt from this levy.
Right, so that's the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, there, talking about revenue mobilization measures for 2022, taking effect on the 1st of January 2022. So road tolls will be abolished from the 1st of January 2022, but would have to pay 1.75% charge on electronic transactions. And these include mobile money transactions and transfers, electronic transfers also. And that's already got many of you asking lots of questions. You've asked what it means. Well, we'll find out more about what it actually means. But the question also is, how is this going to impact our digitalization agenda? How is this going to impact our plans of becoming a cash-light society? Would this in any way affect these plans? Let me get to Professor Lord Mensah, who is Associate Professor in Economics. Professor Lord Mensah, thank you once again for joining us. And so, earlier you had talked about no taxes. We had all these conversations and we had hints about the scrapping of road tolls. Initially, the thinking was that it was going to be, added to as a levy on petroleum prices. That did not happen. The Information Minister had given the hint. But here you have it, a 1.75%, levy, tax, e-levy, tax on, electronic transactions. Before we get into this particular, tax, let's look at whether your expectations were met. Your general impressions about the 2022 budget statement.
Yeah, with a general impression, I'll look at it in aggregation, looking at the revenue that the government has budgeted to generate, and then also the usage, which is the expenditure. Clearly, you could see that looking at the trajectory in the past, then building up to the future, which is next year, 2022, you could see that governments clearly anticipate an increase in revenue. And then this revenue is going to be, subsumed by the expenditure that goes with it. But what I'm happy with is that we seem to be towing, that line of our fiscal deficit that we projected in the past. Currently, with the 2022, we intend to do a deficit of about 7.4% of our GDP, which clearly gives you the direction that what we projected, building up into the ideal, deficit, as of the time that IMF came to Ghana, with our program with IMF, they gave us, a target of 5%, budget deficit as our. So I see that to be an ideal budget deficit, and we seem to be working towards that. And clearly, you could see the projection. Last year we did around, I think, 10-point-something%, and now it has reduced to 7.4%. If we keep it going, then probably going forward, I think we should be able to stay within the IMF target that was given to us when it comes to this expenditure. The budget deficit. But then let's look at the financing of the deficit. We saw that the government has an intention, which the intention of creating jobs here and there, possibly, graduating those NACOP, employees to a use tax package, which they will be assessing funding through the corridors of the banking sector and giving some, ideas of using the financial institutions to implement some of these policies, for which I have been drumming of it. But then if you look at this NAPCO policy that was rolled out, clearly you could see that those who are benefiting from it in line with if I'm not afraid to say, it goes with some kind of party colors here and there. And so if we are going to graduate them,
I mean, when you say it goes with party colors, how do you prove that? Because these are Ghanaians.
I mean, clearly on the grounds that how it was implemented, and then the people who speak to us as we go home. I'm wasted. I'm not from Accra. Almost every week I'm in my village, and I can tell you, what is happening on the ground.
Are you saying that your village people told you, that they were put on NAPCO because of their association with the governing party?
Well, it might not necessarily be direct association, but then you might see somebody, you might have to know somebody here and there. You know how we implement things in Ghana. And so effectively, if we are going business-wise, if we are going to graduate them through the corridors of the bank, I bet you most of them cannot succeed in accessing funding from the banking hall. Now, if you take the deficits that we're doing, with this particular budget, we're going to do, you realize that last year we did around 44 billion, 44 billion worth of budget deficit. This time it has reduced. And so for me, I see it to be a step in the right direction. And then looking at the policies that are going to be rolled out, but then I'm afraid to say that most of the people who benefited from NACOP are not going to benefit from this new start, because if we're going to roll it out through the corridors of bank, then it's going to be purely business. And if it's going to be purely business, then you should understand some basic things, how to develop a business plan for your small business that you're running, for the bank to accept that, yes, indeed, the business has prospect, so they can easily finance it. And then also with the parallel, establishment of the development bank. For me, it will open up competition when it comes to lending. Realize that for some time now, government has been struggling to bring interest rate down at the corridors of the bank. And so if government should have a bank which more or less can source for funding at a cheaper cost and do on lending at a cheaper cost, it should be able to open up a kind of competition. But if the government still keeps its appetite of borrowing from the local market, that dream might not be realized.
But making that point, we've had Professor Lord Mensah, we've had National Investment Bank, we've had Agricultural Development Bank. And consistently the argument has been that a bank set up to support the agricultural sector has not supported the agricultural sector enough. And so the question is really, what is going to change? How sure are we that the National Development Bank that we're putting in place would not be another agricultural development bank?
Winston, I think you studied a bit of economics, and you know that we move in cycles. Whatever the case may be, sometimes we've been in a situation before, and normally as human behavior, we try to build up and go back to where we were before. And life is, economic dynamics are in cycles. Now we established this Agriculture Development Bank and all those, NIB and all those, for banks that are supposed to target certain industries, certain sectors of the economy. However, in the 90s, we opened up, which we went into what we call the universal banking, pedestal. And as a result of that, some of these banks started deviating from their core mandate of lending to the sectors that they're supposed to lend to. But then it all boils down to your sourcing of finance. Because as we open up for universal banking, operations, banks that want to, blend that kind of retail banking and at the same time investment banking will definitely source for funding from areas that will not necessarily have to direct into sectors that they are mandated to lend to. And so if the government has come back to its, senses, and they've realized that, yes, indeed, we need that government-motivated banks, and then the development bank is going to be established as a parallel bank to the existing ones that have adopted that universal banking operations direction, then I think it should be able to open up for the competition, as I said earlier.
Okay. Now, let's get to the taxes. Earlier this morning when we spoke, you talked about you not expecting taxes because you felt that we had reached, government should be looking at increasing the Ghanaians' disposable income or maintaining it. So don't let us reduce the disposable income, and so we should not introduce taxes. Well, that did not happen. We have seen some taxes being introduced. Let's start off with the E-Levy, electronic transaction levy, 1.75%.
Well, Winston, yes. You see, before the mentioning of the electronic transaction, the finance minister elaborated on, research that has been done to identify, the quantum of transactions that goes on in that space.
Yeah.
And clearly, you could see that we are moving towards digitization, for which people have come to embrace that transaction. Let me give myself as an example. I use, Momo for my housekeeping money when I transfer to my wife. And so effectively, this is going to affect me. And that transaction, I can tell you, I do it on a weekly basis, and it seems to be huge. And so this 1.75 will affect me. But let me also tell you, that is the advantage electronics transaction comes with. The digitization that we've been drumming off every now and then, is going to enhance revenue collection. I think that is the play or the direction the government is going into. Now, government has identified the benefit that digitization can give to this economy. Now, let me compare it to the road tolls that we were taking. If you look at the manual nature, and then also the people who are even collecting the money, the fumes that they are inhaling. Now, if you take the number of cars that will pass in a day, and then the leakages that will come as a result of transferring that physical cash from one point to the other, sometimes some of the monies might not even end up in the government coffers. So if the electronic, system has availed itself, for which in the end we can use it to raise the necessary funds that the government needs, I think it should be able to, help us. But let me state categorically that, some exemptions were made, and clearly you could see that it's the sender that is paying this money.
Sure.
And then unless there's an exemption that the receiver will pay, in that regard, you can see clearly that this tax is not going to target those that we think they are out of the tax net. Let me clearly state this. It's unfortunate the research that the finance minister elaborated on did not categorically state the transactions that are being sent and then those who are receiving what they are sending across. Those details did not come out. But you can see clearly that most of the people who use me and you, as we sit in Accra here, that we engage people, and those who are at the hinterlands that we think we are going to bring them on board through this E-Levy are people who are at the receiving end. They are always receiving. And possibly some of even avoid going to the Momo point because of some of these charges. I know some of them, when the MTN introduced this loan on their mobile phone platform, some of them took the loan, and at a point in time they were not even using their mobile phone for the transaction again. And some of my workers, let me use myself as an example, who comes to my house, they tell you that, Prof, I owe. So this time, don't transfer the money. Make sure that I get a fiscal cash. So we should understand this dynamics. But most of these levies that we're going to introduce are levies that are going to hit me and you as we sit in Accra here. Those that we don't have time to go and cash money and then give it to those who are the receiving end. Our parents who are at the village, they are just receiving. And possibly before I send it to them, I may pay that 1.75%. And I'm the same person, paying the levy on the petroleum and all those. Those people don't travel anywhere, wasting. So they are more or less not being catch up into the petroleum levy, and at the same time, this mobile money levy. So it is a good idea. I do embrace it. It's an innovative way. We've come to realize the benefits that the digitization that we're drumming of will give us in terms of revenue collection.
Yes, but Prof, the point you make, yes, it is true that in many of the instances, for those of us who are already known to tax authorities and are paying taxes, are the ones going to be sending these monies. But it's also the reverse, that some of these traders who, who today have access to mobile money, do a lot of transactions on their phones. So if they have to go and pay somebody, they just would send it to you through mobile money. And so if you're making payments more than 100 Ghana cedis daily, you would also be paying. As we speak, of course, we may not know who within the formal sector would be, or informal sector would be doing that. But let me introduce, Joseph Paddy, who is the former chairman of the spare parts dealers and is the PRO of Guta. He's joined us here in studio. Now, let me start on this note and we'll get to the benchmark.
Exactly so.
We'll get to the benchmark.
That's my interest.
Yes, I know that's your interest. But let's look at the E-Levy.
Yes.
Would you still pay through, the electronic means?
That is the difficulty. Like I was just talking to you this morning that I have to pay some duty, and the duty is a tax. So they are taxing me on the tax.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm paying duty. Am I going to pay the 1.75 on that amount of duty that I'm paying as a tax component? So this is the difficulty and the challenge.
So would you pay?
If that's the digitization that we find ourselves in, I have no choice than to pay. Otherwise, I have to carry the cash and go to the port. If you are holding about 90,000 Ghana cedis in your hand to go and pay at the port, it's a challenge. But then we are saying with this introduction of this, it's not going to help businesses.
How is it not going to help business?
Because we transact, like I've just told you, I'm going to pay tax. And I'm being taxed on the tax I'm going to pay. So it's like double taxation. That's how we see it. Yes, it's like double taxation. So, and we are saying cost of doing business in the country is extremely expensive. So it's going to add on to the already business we are doing. So it's going to make businesses very expensive. And obviously, I'm going to pass on to the consumer.
You're going to pass it on to us?
Yes, obviously. I'm not Father Christmas. I'm going to pass it on to you, obviously. So price of goods and services will go up per that. Because whatever charges are paid at the port plus the tax, we are seeing a small quantum, but just imagine you are paying about 200,000 Ghana cedis of duty, or you are paying 500,000 Ghana cedis of duty. It's huge. If you calculate it, it's huge. And if I do that, when I'm going to compute my prices, I'm going to add on to it before I pass it on to the final consumer.
Let's do the calculation, for instance, and find out if you're doing 200,000, by 1.75%. So that's 3,500.
Exactly so. So by means, I'm going to divide this 3,000 onto the goods and pass it on to you. And already bear in mind that when you transfer money on mobile, you pay some percentage. I think 1%.
Yes, 1%. So that's a charge. That's a charge.
That's a charge of 1%. So it's going to be added on the same amount. So it's going to be 2.75. Listen, this is the situation. So government should come again. Let's interrogate.
Government should come again. Yes. You don't support this? You think that?
No, we should interrogate so that we understand, appreciate where they are coming from, what they want to achieve. Yes, and like you're saying, this was to target the informal sector. But the way it looks, it doesn't target the informal sector. It doesn't. Because in the informal sector, we transfer money to our grandmothers and our grandfathers in the villages. So it's the same people in the urban area who are still going to suffer these consequences.
I'll come back to you, but let me get to you, Professor, Lord Mensah. He makes a very fantastic point. The fact that, he's a businessman, he's going to be transferring it to us, and that should be expected. Businessmen do not bear these costs to transfer it, to us. But let's look at the quantum of Momo transactions, even before we get to, other forms of electronic payment. In 2020 alone, we're told that the total transactions via Momo was 569 billion Ghana cedis. That is a lot of economic activity going on there. And if you're any government, you should be looking into tapping into that and generating some revenue, isn't it, Professor Lord Mensah? So you wouldn't fault any government that wants to do that. If you could unmute your microphone.
Right, it's unmuted now.
Yes.
You see, that is, yes, in reality, that's how it's supposed to be. As a government, you need to look at, the sectors that are active. We keep on calling government to widen the tax net, which for me, I always say, okay, fine, you widen the tax net. There is an economy you want to touch on, which we call it underground economy. Sometimes their value becomes difficult. How to assess this economy is very, very tough. And I've not seen any research that has come out to say that, this is the value of the informal sector that we are targeting. And so if by the electronic transaction, you are able to identify the kind of transaction that goes on down there, this 569 that you mentioned seem to be in a kind of aggregated form. But we needed a breakdown to see what is down that informal sector that we are targeting. This 569, I can tell you about 90% of it will be, within the informal circles. And so effectively, it's the same people that you are taxing. And we already paying the 1% as indicated earlier. And that will end up going to about 2-point-something%. So effectively, we've introduced a good thing, all right, but it might not necessarily widen the tax net as expected. And looking at the way and manner we want to put up the charges. And for every government, you always want to look at where the economy is active, place your revenue target. And so if the government has placed it on the electronic platforms, for me, I think it's a step in the right direction. But maybe the 1.75 seemed to be too high from the beginning. This is a policy that is being introduced. We know that there has been some mobile tax introduction some time ago, which was scrapped. I mean, and I could see the government, kind of inconsistency when it comes to introduction of levies and then taking them up. That in itself, for me, I've been complaining about it, saying that it's not good. It doesn't give confidence to the economy because the investor doesn't know when you're going to throw out your next, tax lines. And so when they are coming to invest in the environment, they get a bit scared. And so if you ask me, I will tell you that it is a good, step that the government has taken. But since it's something that they are introducing, we should be able to be a bit moderate in terms of the levy. But then also, listen, let me tell you one thing. You see,
go ahead.
This levy that is being introduced, you see, I don't have problem paying those levies. But the question is what the money will be able to do for us. We mentioned that roads, okay? Now, if I pay this levy, Winston, and then I travel all the way to West Hills Mall and then go off-road for about 15 to 16 minutes. And then at the end of the day, every 6 months, I have to buy new shocks for my car. It's more or less a triple tax that you are giving me because I'll be paying this levy. My roads are not good. I have to be repairing my car every now and then. And let me state this categorically. If we take the bull by the horn and then we invest heavily on our road infrastructure, it will go a long way to spare us even on our foreign exchange. Because the car parts that we use in this country, we don't do any of them here. We import all of them. So if we should, directly, invest heavily on our roads as a country, it's going to help us, in the long term, control even our foreign exchange. So for me, I don't have problem with this levy. But then what it is coming to do, whether it will be able to create jobs as we are drumming, whether it will be able to create the necessary roads that we need, the various facilities that we need as a country, we shouldn't have problem. If you go to the advanced world, it's taxes that they used to rule. When
exactly.
But you tap into the human resources, and the human resources obviously are things that you can always rely on because population is growing every now and then. Looking at the bulge of youthful population of this country, if they are all engaged, actively in the economy and you are taxing them, I think we will go a long way. So effectively, for me, I don't have problem. But if we'll be able to account for what those monies are coming to do in this country, we should be fine in the future. But the history is not on our side. History has never been on our side in terms of usage of levies that comes to us. So I'm afraid to say that the introduction is a bit harsh.
And talking about it being a bit harsh, let me just get this point. Now, you say we're starting something, and so 1.75% is on the high side. What would you have preferred?
Well, probably, already there's a kind of a flat rate for every transaction that you do. Banks are charging on whatever transaction you do. Mobile money platforms are also charging. So we look into that and say, okay, fine, you pay whatever the mobile money platforms are charging, pay half of it, as a starting point. And gradually you win the confidence of the taxpayer. Because when those small levies come to you and use it wisely, next time if you are increasing it, there won't be much complaint as we are seeing now.
You've also made another point, and it will lead me to a conversation that we need to have before I get to Joseph Paddy in here and look at the bench.
Winston, I have to teach you. My students are waiting for me on the other side of the
last question. You've actually
of the Zoom.
Yes. We're going to wrap it up here. You've made a point about inconsistencies, and that would bring me to what constitutes our tax policy as a country, it looks like we're always changing. So we introduce taxes, then we withdraw. It looks like we don't have a plan over a period. Now, what should we be doing to ensure that these kind of situations do not repeat themselves? And so we plan and know that this is what we want, and over this period, this is what we're going to generate.
Well, Winston, you see, when you are building up economy, when you're managing an economy, we have our medium-term, plan as a country. And the medium plan, that we have has a medium development plan that we have, has, sectors that, we targeted. And those sectors are supposed to influence, our tax policies. We talked about digitization as far as our transactions are concerned, going cashless. And we've realized that, okay, fine, now that we've gone cashless and found to huge quantities of transactions are going on the electronic platform, let's shift the taxes there. I pray that we're going to be consistent on this. We're not going to remove it next time for political reasons. And so we have to stop, motivating our tax policies politically and then tie it to our developmental agenda. How we want to create the economy that we want in the future. Economy that the youth will benefit. Economy that, we know that this sector is the main contributor of the economy for a certain number of years. So if our tax are aligned in that sector, to that sector, we shouldn't have problem. So that is what I want to see, Winston, going forward.
Professor Lord Mensah, thank you very much for joining us. You have to go back to the classroom. So we're very grateful that you made time to join us this evening on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. We'll go for some few messages. When we return, Joseph Paddy is here. We'll be getting into the benchmark value reduction reversal. I mean, he seems not happy about it. And he started by telling us how they were going to transfer all of that to us. So what becomes of you and me when it comes to prices of these goods that we're talking about reversing the benchmark value reduction. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Right, so welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. My name is Winston Amwa, and this evening we're reviewing the 2022 budget statement as presented by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta in Parliament today. And now that we have, the PRO of Guta, former chairman of spare part dealers here in Accra, Joseph Paddy. So let's get into the benchmark value reduction.
Yes.
Reversal.
Yes.
Earlier, AG had made certain proposals. You had disagreed. Unfortunately for you, the minister has talked about it today. He says, we're going to review
Reverse it.
Yes, we said they will review, yes. They'll review it, so that's more like they'll reverse it.
Obviously.
They'll review it, so they'll reverse it. Yes, already we had seen letters from the Ghana Revenue Authority. Yeah. They had indicated also that we should wait for the finance minister to make the presentation in Parliament. What's your take on this? Disappointed, but how does that affect you?
We are, because as part of our proposal that we sent to the Ministry of Finance, we were saying that we didn't want to see any layer of cost of doing business, because already when the computation is too high. But we see before then, I was going to ask a question. The Vice President assured us that we are going to move out of taxation into production. Mm-hmm. So what has changed? Now,
tell me, what has changed?
We all have to interrogate and find out what has changed. Because we're saying that we're going to move from taxation into production, and therefore we are going to do away with taxes. That's why when they say some of the taxes were nuisance, they also, when we were drumming home that it was nuisance, they agreed with us at that time. So they took some taxes off. Now they can't reintroduce those taxes. So what has changed? This is the question that we all have to interrogate and find out. But like I said earlier on, whatever tax come on, we'll take it wholeheartedly, receive it, but then we'll pass it on to you people, and then we'll all move on together. So, because as part of our proposal, we're saying that we didn't want to see any layer of cost of doing business. Therefore, there shouldn't be any introduction of new taxes, because already we are burdened with taxes. When you go to the port to clear your goods, you have 19 components of taxes that I cannot mention them here. So adding on to another tax is a challenge to businesses. And the benchmark didn't come in a vacuum. There was a reason. And what happened was that when our duty rate was extremely on the higher side compared to the sub-regions. of West African countries. We're on the higher, we pay about 50% cumulatively. Some even move to 60%. When you are paying duty on 30%, this when you cumulate all, it's about 60%. And some are 50%. So we told government that, so if you import about 100,000 worth of goods, you are paying about $50,000 or $60,000 in duty. That's difficult. That's a challenge moment. So they appreciated what we're saying. And that's why they brought this benchmark to cushion us. So this benchmark came and brought a relief to businesses. So we were happy with that. And then only for us to get up today for government to announce that they are reversing it so that we go back to the... But then we're asking ourselves, the issue, the situation that pertains before the benchmark still pertains. The duty rate has not changed. So what is the other alternative? You can't just come and say, I'm withdrawing it without any alternative. So then we are going to come back to you and say, the duty rate must then be changed. Because 50%, 60% is extremely on the higher side.
We're being told that even though you are enjoying this relief, the end user is not enjoying the same.
The end user did. The end user did.
But no longer enjoys it.
They are still enjoying it. Why am I saying so? You know, we had all this relief, but then remember that, how do you call it, exchange rate also went up and it affected us. We're changing it as 5.4. It went to 5.8 and now it's 6.2. So whatever, so now if I'm looking for $10,000, instead of 58,000 Ghana cedis, I now need about 62,000 cedis. The difference, where am I going to get it from? Obviously, I have to pass it on to the consumer and get a little relief.
You seem to be, I mean, yes. You've made this point over and over again.
Yes.
I'll pass it on to you, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can do. Yeah, but you are going to the bank for interest rate at a rate of 25%. What do you do? Meanwhile, your neighboring countries are getting it for 15, 10%. So you are not, in the first, as where they go on, first track, you are on the disadvantage. Because you are not competitive. Because you are going to borrow, you are buying this item for $10. Your neighbor is getting interest rate from his bank at 10%. You are going to borrow, maybe you're looking for $1 million worth to go and import this item. You are going to borrow at the rate of 23, 25%. Your price cannot be the same.
21, 23. But the point is, if you talk consistently about wood transfer,
what can we do?
That's something I mean, that's a basic business.
Yes.
But if it was that simple, you wouldn't be complaining, because once you transfer,
based
on the kind of business you do,
yes.
Once you transfer, if we cannot afford, we will not buy.
Yeah, then we have a challenge too.
Exactly. So you have a challenge.
We have a challenge too. Because we have a challenge because when we even transfer and you cannot afford, we have a challenge in there too. So it's a difficult situation both for the businessman and for the consumer as well. That's what I'm saying. It's a two-way affair. It's not only for the consumer as a business as well. Because you can even go to the warehousing, go and pack all your goods at the warehouse. You are paying for warehouse. Nobody wants to do that. So that is why we are saying that it's expensive. Government should come again. That's what we're saying, because it came and brought a relief to the business community. That's why GRA was able to meet their target. Compliance level went up because nobody can do underhand dealing. Because you have been giving all this relief. Why do you want to go and do underhand dealing? So that's the difficulty we're going to find here is that what is going to be the compliance level as this one is being introduced. But even when we're in the COVID moment, GRA said they met their target.
Yes.
With all this, they met their target. So which means the compliance benchmark came and brought a relief. So people were complying. The compliance levels went up.
I mean, when it comes to import duties, they exceeded the target.
They exceeded the target.
Yes. I mean, the budget was 4.7 billion, and the target. I mean,
so what was the motivation? What was the cost of that?
8.1 billion cedis.
Yes.
Tell me, you have talked about underhand dealings. I want to understand something. When it comes to happenings at the port, what are some of the underhand dealings that used to pertain? I mean, that used to happen when the benchmark values were not reduced.
Because the duty rate was high.
So
let's be sincere to ourselves.
So what underhand dealings were happening?
No, let's be sincere to ourselves. Everybody wants to look for a ways and means to clear it. Because you can't, when you bring the goods, just imagine you've brought a car and they are seizing your car. You see most cars around, people are clearing their cars through Togo. Now you have RT numbers in town. Because they think it's cheaper to clear the car from Togo. And they move in, 6 months they go out, and they move 6 months they go out, and they go and renew their document, and they come back in. But when this benchmark came, go and look at the port, the number of cars that were coming through our port. So it brought some sanity and relief to businesses. But now you are even saying that they should reverse back to what they used to pertain there. They should go and clear their goods from Togo or Nigeria. That's what you are telling them. So you see that the flow of containers at the port will be reduced. That's the difficulty we are seeing. Because, and now, even the finance minister appreciated, and he said it in his statement, that he appreciated that containers have shot up, shipping has shot up to about 13,000 per container. So from 3,000 to 13,000. And all these ones are burden on the business community. So if you are also taking off the benchmark, then you are trying to kill businesses. But we believe that when business grows, your revenue grows. So what can you do to make sure businesses are grown? What can you do to develop businesses? Because
these are not all items.
Your revenue depends
but there are about 30 items.
Like mosquito coil. Who uses mosquito coil? It's not the poor. Mm-hmm. And what happens when you use mosquito coil? You kept, what kind of sickness? Malaria.
Malaria.
So you have taken care of that. So if you have added mosquito coil to your list, which will patronize mosquito coil? These are some of the things we should be looking at. These are the challenges.
I mean, when it comes to you as good time, when it comes to your spare parts dealers, would you support the reversal on some items, or you say, no, we don't want any reversal at all?
What we are saying is that the duty rate is high. It's two options. You give us a benchmark to cure a mischief that we're suffering. Now you have taken the benchmark out. Are you going to reduce the duty rate for all businesses?
You want the duty rate reduced now that the benchmark is going to be reversed?
The duty rate must be reduced because 50% is on the higher side. Compared to our neighboring countries, we are on the higher side. That's why we keep on saying the cost of doing business in this country is extremely high, extremely expensive. That is why industry is not attractive. Because you can't go to the bank and borrow at the...
And that's the whole idea. They want to make industry attractive. Industry says, we want to be attractive, so why don't you reverse these so we could be attractive?
They are not attractive.
It's just the same thing that you are talking about.
They are not attractive because they are borrowing at a higher rate, so they are not competitive to your neighboring countries. Somebody can come and buy a raw material from this country, take it to this country, produce and bring it, and it's still cheaper than that which is produced here. Why? Because you can go and borrow at the rate of 23-25% and do production. Utilities on the higher side. Water bills are on the higher side. Electricity is on the higher side. I have a friend who went into manufacturing. He has reversed back into trading. So he can afford the electricity. He was producing nails. He said it's even cheaper to go and buy from China and bring the nails here rather than to produce it here. So we are saying, what can government do to support industry by area of giving them cheap funding, cheaper credit, utility bills be cheaper for them, affordability of electricity bill. Because just imagine light goes off, your uncertainty, light goes off, you have to depend on generator, you have to buy fuel. All these cost components, when you add it, make cost of industry very expensive. And that is what the difficulty is. So we see it, we are seeing that trading is not collapsing. Bear in mind that we do the trading, we do the distribution for them. So if this item is costing 10 cedis in Ghana, and it's costing even 8 cedis in Dubai, why would I worry myself, go and hire a hotel, pay duty, and come and sell it here? I would go here and go do the distribution. Okay. Do they have the capacity? The country is looking...
Do they have the capacity?
As we speak now, they don't. The country is looking for 10,000. You can only produce 6,000. Let me give you an example. Our confectionery women at Okanshin and Mokola, they were looking for biscuits. You know, children go to school, they use biscuits. And then they gave their money to the biscuit producers. 3 months, they couldn't produce. They went back, they brought their money back. So the capacity, so what can we do to help this industry to build their capacity? That's what we're looking for. When it happens that way, we, the business, we will go and do the distribution for them. We even do export for them. The overflow. We'll go out there and go and do...
What are you going to do now?
Yeah, we're going to sit on the round table. We'll go back to government and let government appreciate where we are coming from. We've told government that cost of doing business in the country is not attractive, it's on the higher side. You have been
making this point before the budget, and government still went ahead.
Yes, so
we don't know their motivation. How sure are you that government is going to listen to you now that it's gone ahead?
What is the alternative? Government should give us another alternative where our duties will come down. We are saying the rate is too much. And why he appreciated it then, so why now? That still the duty rate remains where they are. So why do you take the benchmark out? So we will still engage government. I don't think it's too late yet. We'll still engage government, and then I believe governance is a collaboration effort between the two parties. So we'll still engage government. And since we are also shareholders in governance, we'll engage government.
If it doesn't come down?
If it doesn't come down, we'll cross it.
What options are available?
We have those options. We still want to...
Yeah, but I'm asking the options available to you.
Listen, there are so many options in my sleeves. When you get there, we'll roll them down. And we'll put them on board. So hold your peace.
In the meantime, you are transferring all of it to us.
In the meantime, we'll see what we can do to help the consuming public. But if there's no choice, we have no choice than to even let you also pay a little.
You want to absorb some of it so that it eats
already, we are absorbing, because with this COVID pandemic that came, most businesses are in the theater trying to survive. Yeah, and doctors are working on them. So if you take this one out too, then you are going to punish them more. Some of them are bleeding. They have become pale, anemic. businesses, seriously, business are in crisis. Let me be sincere with you. People who used to, just imagine you used to import 10 containers, and now a container charge is about 13,000. So multiply by 10, you are paying 130,000 compared to when it's 3,000. Then you are paying 30,000. Look at the difference. So it's a difficult moment, we say, for the trading community. We are not, you see, this cry we're crying is not for our profit margin or we want to maximize profit. We're also thinking about the consumer like you and I. We are all consumers. We're taking our purchasing power. I don't know if your salary has been increased in recent time. Then we can agree on.
Well, I did not hear that question. Thank you very much, Joseph Paddy, for joining us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. We're very grateful that you also made time to, watch us this evening. Catch me live on the Super Morning Show tomorrow morning from 5:50 a.m. to 10 a.m. We'll be talking about the budget. We'll do further analysis. We'll give you a chance to also join us and tell us what your thoughts are. Please do have a lovely evening. My name is Winston Amon. On behalf of the team, thank you very much for joining us.